بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, welcome to our second session in the course 7 Keys to Success, and today we will talk about key number 2, which is taking risk. Taking risk is the essence of tawakkul. It is the essence of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me therefore tell you an interesting story. This is a teaching story, and the story goes something like this: that there was a man who was a mountaineer. He was a famous mountaineer, and he decided to climb a particular mountain on the most difficult route, and to do it alone. So this was his plan. So he prepared for it for a long time, got ready and everything else, and then he got to the base camp. But the day he wanted to do his climb, the weather suddenly changed. So people advised him and they told him, just hold off your climb, don't do it now. The weather doesn't look good and it can become dangerous. So, wait a few days. For whatever reason, the man didn't have the time, he didn't want to wait, so he said, no, I'm going to go ahead, and he started his climb. Now, as he's climbing up, the weather kept on deteriorating, went from bad to worse, and it looked like there was a huge storm that was brewing. And lo and behold, as this man was way up in the mountain, almost at the top, the storm struck and it became pitch dark, and bolts of lightning and so on, and rain, and it got very, very treacherous. And as this man reached up to get a handhold, his hand slipped and he fell. Now, as this man is falling down, imagine the situation. As he's falling down, his whole life flashed before his eyes. He had no hope. He knew he would be dead in a few seconds. His whole life flashed before his eyes. And spontaneously he screamed. He said, "Oh God, save me." He screamed, "Oh God, save me." And suddenly he had a rope, which he, what's called a belaying rope. That rope snagged on something. And it was an enormous jerk, and this man came to a halt. His fall stopped. And now he is hanging like a pendulum in midair. He looked here and there. He can't see anything. He doesn't know how far from the ground he is, where he is, how far from the top. No idea, completely disoriented. And then he hears a voice. And the voice says, "Do you really think I can save you?" The man says, "Of course." He said, "There is nobody else who can save me. Only you can save me." He says, "Oh God, save me." So the voice says, "Are you sure? Are you sure that I can save you?" The man says, "Absolutely, absolutely certain. There's no doubt about this. Absolutely certain. There's nobody else. Only you can save me. Please save me." The voice says, "Then cut the rope. Cut the rope." Now they say that the following morning they sent out search parties to find this man, and one search party found him holding the rope with both his hands, frozen to death, 4 feet from the ground. 4 feet up, this man is dead, clinging to the rope, frozen. Cut the rope. This is the essence of tawakkul. The essence of tawakkul is to take risk on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. which means to cut the rope of dunya. To cut the rope of dunya. Now, that does not mean that we leave our jobs and we, leave our homes and we go and live in a cave somewhere. No. It means the connection that I have in my heart, where I trust and I rely on others other than Allah. That connection must be cut. What is the sign of that connection? The sign of that connection is that when it comes to obeying Allah or obeying the makhluk, obeying the creatures, I obey the creatures instead of obeying Allah. That shows that my rope is tied and I have not cut the rope. Imagine if you are in business, or imagine if you want to buy a house, or imagine any of those things, and you have an option, and the option is to do it the way Allah likes it, or to do it the way Allah does not like it. If your rope has been cut, and if you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His rope, then you have no problem. You know that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He decrees can happen. What Allah has not decreed cannot happen. So you have no problem. You will obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if that is not there, if this material rope is still connected to you, and if you are still clinging to that material rope, then you will obey the banker and you will obey your advisor, and the person will say you must take a mortgage, or the person will say you must take a bank loan for your business, you must take a long-term loan, short-term loan. You will do all of that, and you will write your own name with your own hand in the list of the enemies of Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared war on the one who deals in interest. What do you call the one who is at war with you? Enemy. Is there some other word? So when I say enemies of Allah, don't get offended. That is the reality, and that's what you are doing to yourself. This is the meaning of cutting the rope and connecting yourself to Allah. This is the meaning of tawakkul. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the mutawakkilun, inshallah. Before we go further now, therefore, the first step to do is to set your goal. What is your life goal? What is it that you want to achieve in life? Because everything else, all other decisions, will be based on this one definition, which is the definition of a life goal. Where should you spend your money? Where should you spend your time? What is good expenditure of money? What is waste of money? What is good expenditure of time? What is a waste of time? What is a good expenditure of energy? What is the waste of energy? All of these questions can only be answered if my life goal definition is clear. If the definition is not clear, then I cannot answer any of these questions. Then what happens is we fall back on a very unreliable basis of decision making, which is enjoyment. Oh, I enjoyed it. I had a good time. Please understand this. I am not against good times. I am not being a stick in the mud. Right? By all means, have good times. But just wasting time is not a good time. To judge how you spend your time purely on the basis of enjoyment is a very unreliable way of judging time. Understand this, that goal-driven people who are motivated by great tasks, they thoroughly enjoy doing that. So it's not as if you are goal-driven, you will have a life which is dull and boring. You will not. You have the most interesting life. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was more goal-driven than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Who was more motivated towards achieving this amazing objective of taking the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into every home on the face of the planet? Who was more motivated to do that than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself? But he didn't have time, he didn't take time off from there to say, okay, now I'm on holiday, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to relax, now I'm going to watch some, football or something. I mean, obviously those days they didn't watch things. He never did, he did not do any of that because there was no need. This was his relaxation was what? Was Salah. He used to say to Bilal radiallahu anhu, Arihna Bilal. He used to say, give us rahat, give us happiness, give us, call the adhan. Because that was the whole idea of salah, the whole idea of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so enormously motivating. So people who are goal driven are people who are not living boring lives. The people who are living extremely interesting lives which they thoroughly enjoy. So the first thing I want you to do is to write your life goal. Now how will you do that? So think about this and say, what do you see yourself? How do you want to see yourself in the future? And one way of looking at it and one way of doing that exercise is to imagine that you are attending your own farewell party, right? Today is your retirement day. You are age 65 or 70 or something, and you are retiring, and your colleagues have given you a farewell party, and there is somebody there, one of your colleagues who knows you and has known you throughout your life, who is making a speech. And let us assume that this colleague is speaking the truth, because as they say, there are lies and there are big lies and there are retirement speeches. So we're not talking about that kind of retirement speech. We're talking about a genuine retirement speech where the person is speaking to, is telling the people who you are and what you did and what were your achievements and so on and so on. So I want you to write all this down. Write a one-pager on this and say, what do you want to hear in the speech, right? And after that, from that, extract a one-liner. It's very important to have a one-line statement of your life goal, not a whole page, just one single line. And make sure that you write that line in a way which inspires you. One way of seeing if it inspires you or not is to see if it brings tears to your eyes. Because I always say, if it can't make you cry, it can't make you work. So write your goal statement. Now think about this. There are two kinds of goals. There are what I call being goals and what I call doing goals. Being goals and doing goals. Now usually if you ask anybody, and I'm asking you, what is your life goal, right? Many of you will give me being goals answer. I want to be the CEO of a company. I want to be the principal of a school. I want to be a cardiologist. I want to be a neurologist. I want to be a neurosurgeon, right? I want to be a pilot maybe not an F-16, because by the time you become a pilot, it'll probably be F-21 or something. Yeah, so I want to be the pilot of an F-21 aircraft. I want to be a great humanitarian. I want to invent a form of alternate energy that is completely and totally non-polluting, and where batteries can charge instantaneously. As soon as you plug it in, it charges. Whatever, I want to be this. I want to be an inventor. Now, think about this. Whatever, no matter what it is, if you want to be something, you have to do something, isn't it? If you want to be something, you have to do something. So I want to say to you that to be, you must do. But to do, you don't have to be. And unless you do, you will never be. Let me repeat that. It sounds like a riddle, but it's not. To be, you must do. To do, you need not be. And unless you do, you will never be. So take your being goal and translate it into a doing goal. What do I need to do in order to be that? Let me share with you my own story. In 1983, I decided that I wanted to be a leadership development trainer, a leadership trainer. So I first sat down and wrote my one-liner. And my one-liner was that I want to be a globally recognized leadership trainer. Right? I want to be a globally recognized leadership trainer. So one line. Now, what do I need to do? And that is where we come to the next part of the story. But before we go to the next part of the story, let's take the same thing. I want to be a leadership trainer, and take this goal and put it on this template, but before you go to the template even, take this goal and think about this and say, why is this important to me? Right? Why is this important to me? Now, to me, it was important because it was something that I had experienced as a recipient of this service, as a student, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I put myself into the shoes of the trainer. I spoke to the trainer. That trainer, Arun Joshi, is a very dear friend of mine. I spoke to him. I tried to put myself in his shoes, and I realized that he was a man who was doing something he thoroughly enjoyed, which was very meaningful. It was very helping to people. I was one of the people who was helped. So here is this wonderful opportunity where I can help people and thoroughly enjoy myself doing that. I meet a lot of new people and so on in the process, and I also make money. So I said, this is great. I mean, why don't I become a leadership trainer? So I want you to do this. I want you to write your goal in one line, and then think about why is it important for you, right? And also in that process, think about what's in it for you. I mean, how will you benefit if you achieve this goal? Having done that, take this statement, your one-liner, and map it onto the SMART goals model. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware of what is the SMART goals model, but for those of you for whom it's the first time, SMART stands for, S is for specific. The goal should be specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. Right? So SMART, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. So that's a SMART goal. So take this, for example, I made this statement. I want to be a globally recognized leadership trainer. Now, is that a SMART goal? Is it specific? Yes, because I want to be a globally, not a local person, a globally recognized leadership trainer. Very specific. Is it measurable? Not immediately, but I worked more on it, and I said, how will I be, how can I measure that? How can I say to myself, I'm globally recognized? I said, I can say that to myself if I get an invitation to speak at an international conference. Then I know that I am a globally recognized leadership trainer. So I said I must work towards that. I must get an invitation to speak speak at an international conference. Actionable, did I know what I needed to do? Well, in my case, yes or no, because it was a very vague field. To this day, it's a very vague field. You can't just go and train to become a leadership trainer. There's no such training available. You have to really do a lot of work trying to find people who will train you and so on. But yes, it is doable. It's actionable. Is it realistic? Well, frankly, it was realistic, yes, but it was a huge stretch goal, because where I was living at the time, what I had at the time, was very far away from what I needed to have. The gap was enormous, and we'll come to gap analysis in a second, so you will see what I mean. But it was, at least I thought it was realistic. And time bound, at the time I wrote this goal, I did not have a time boundary on it. So it is something which I strongly feel I would have benefited if I had a time boundary. And that's why I'm saying to you that do make yourself and keep a time boundary. Even if the time boundary, later on I said I want to be by such and such a date, and that was 5 years down the road. And you might say, why 5? Because it's just an arbitrary number. But I discovered in my life that even an arbitrary number is better than no number. So you must have some kind of time frame on it. Otherwise, it's just a wish. It won't happen unless you put a time frame on it. One thought in my mind which I want to share with you is this: you can achieve results or you can make excuses, but you can't do both. Right? You can achieve results or you can make excuses, but you can't do both. So decide what you want to do. So now you have your goal statement. You know why that's important to you. You know what you want to do with that. Now let's go to the next step, which is gap analysis. In simple words, gap analysis is to get a picture of where I am now and where I need to be. That's all, between here and there. What is the gap? And then work on it and say, what do I need to do in order to bridge that gap? Because unless I bridge that gap, I will not achieve my goal. So, where am I now? Do a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, threats, with regard to your current state. And then compare that with what is required for the achievement of your goal. So when I was looking at my current state in 1983, when I wrote this statement, right, I want to be a globally recognized leadership trainer. In terms of strengths, I put down there complete single-minded focus, enormous energy. I was very, very passionate about this. This was something I really wanted to do. But other than that, I had no strength. I mean, in the sense of knowledge about that, I didn't have anything. And that was not part of my training. I didn't have that. I was articulate. I could speak, but other than that, it wasn't much. Weaknesses. One was location. At that time, I was living in the tea gardens. I was in a very, very beautiful place of the world, but it was very remote. So getting to any place from there was literally a 2-day journey one way. So if I wanted to do something, it really meant taking almost 3 or 4 or 5 days off to do a 1 or 2 day session with somebody. So it was a very highly, highly inconvenient location, number one. Number two, funds were very, very scarce. My salary at that time in 1983, I was earning 850 rupees per month. Sure, the rupee value was a little bit more than what it's today, but it wasn't bags of gold. 850 rupees was very little money, and in this money I had to run my whole house and everything else, and I had to do whatever I needed to do in order to become a leadership trainer. So buying books and whatnot. So this is what you must do. Do a SWOT analysis, where you are now, and then compare it to what is the requirement of the goal. Second thing, and the requirement of my goal was that if I wanted, actually, the goal was to become a trainer, meaning that I needed to have clients, I needed to have somebody who would pay me to train them. I mean, that's how I would eat. Now, which means I needed experience. How would I get experience? So there's amazing number of challenges that if you think about it. So then you say, okay, what is that gap between this and that, and what will it take to bridge that gap? And then, of course, how long will that take, right? Be very frank with yourself. I mean, don't try to fool yourself. That is the worst thing to do. So in this gap analysis, I want to say to you, there are 3 things which you should look at. Number 1 is people. Of course, that is yourself, but also in terms of the people that you need. People you need to learn from, people whose help you might need, depending on what it is you are doing. Maybe it's people that you need to recruit to work with you, building a team, right? So depends on your goal, of course, but who are the people, who do you have and who do you need? Number 2 is funding. And say, well, how much funding do you actually need and how much do we have? And in this process, again, remember, all of these are subject to the ahkam, to the orders and to the permissibilities of Islam, to the orders of Allah and what is permissible in Islam. Third is factors. What factors are in our control and what factors do we need to influence? So these are three critical things that we need to take into account when we are looking at gap analysis. So this is one template that I want to share with you. And once you do that gap analysis, so now you have an idea in people what is the gap, in funding what's the gap, and in terms of factors, which is external factors, which would be socio-economic factors, political factors, and so on. What is the gap, and how can we either influence them directly or indirectly, whichever way, right? So control or influence. Then out of that, you must create a strategy. So what is your strategy of achieving the goal, right? So start working on that strategy. Again, the strategy, work it on the same three principles, which is people. The strategy would be, how can I attract and retain the key people that I need? What do I need to do? And by all means, and please understand, it won't happen with money alone. The people you need are the people who share your dream. So even before you go to the people, one of the things you need to think about is, how can I make them dream my dream? How can I project, how can I express my dream in such a way that they will find it attractive? Meaning that they will see the achievement of their own dream by working with me in my dream. So taking people along. How can I attract the right people, and how can I retain the right people? This is the first challenge. Second challenge is in terms of funding, short term and long term. What are the alternatives available? Because we don't deal in riba, we don't deal in interest-based financing. So what are the alternatives available to me? Is it venture capital financing? Is it going to the public? What are the options available to me? Right? And believe me, options are only dependent on our own creativity. It's the question of how creative can I be, how much energy I have in generating alternatives. It's not just a matter of, it's not just a matter of having the money or going to a bank and borrowing it. No. There are many ways of, halal ways of raising funds, both short term and long term. Third one is factors. This is a little bit more complicated because economic factors, social factors, political factors, almost by definition, will usually be out of our control. We can't affect those factors directly. But what can we do? What can we do which will help us to benefit, sometimes even to benefit from challenges that the whole world is facing? Take a simple thing, for example, take in this COVID times, if you look at the communication technology, right, there is not one single new thing that has happened. Everything which we are using was already there. It's just that we are now using it more and in a more targeted way, right? So take Zoom, for example. One of the biggest success stories of COVID is Zoom. Zoom was there even before COVID, but they did some things to their app which made it much more easily usable and very user friendly, and so people got Zoom accounts and so on, and Zoom became so popular. Skype, for example, had been there even before Zoom, but for some reason, I don't know, I have not heard of Skype in all these 2 years. I've never had somebody say, can we connect on a Skype call? People say, can we connect on a Zoom call? Similarly, if you take technologies like the chat programs, whether it's WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal or something, calling on that chat has become extremely popular, right? So thanks to COVID, all of these got a boost. Take a simple thing like mask manufacture. I'm sure all of you remember there was a time in 2019 when COVID first hit. That's why it's called COVID-19. My wife was making masks for our neighbors because there were no masks. In America, in the most powerful country in the world, we had no masks. Of course, today it's the other way around. But the point is that mask manufacturers, they made a killing. Simple thing like a mask. And then of course people came up with the, now I don't know why people don't come up with something which doesn't fog up the glasses when you wear the mask. Make a mask in such a way that it comes under the glasses like this. Either my mask goes into my eyes or my glasses fog up. I mean, that's a strange thing. But anyway, so I'm saying that even in the worst of times, there are people who find ways of leveraging that to their own advantage. And that's what I mean by controlling or influencing external factors. Right? So I want you to think about that, and then based on that, create your strategy and say, what is the strategy that I should have if I want to succeed? Right? What's your success strategy? Then you take this strategy and you create a roadmap to achieving the strategy. So what is a roadmap must have milestones. So which is the metrics of it. So you create the strategy and then you make a roadmap and you say, in this roadmap, what are the metrics? How will I measure? What will I do? So when I did when I started this goal of mine of becoming a leadership trainer, so the metrics I had was that one metric was that every year I would get for myself at least one new training, one new certification. I tried to keep that up as much as possible. Then I realized, and a friend of mine told me, he said, if you want to be taken seriously as a consultant, then you have to write a book. So I said, okay. And I wrote a book called The Business of Family Business, which is on family business consulting. And then, of course, I wrote many other books. I've written books on entrepreneurship, on hiring, on all kinds of things. And then I became very interested in Islam and Islamic sciences, so I wrote books on those. And today I have got 43 books totally. The 43rd one is in print. It is being published, but totally 43 books in a period of about 20 years. So that's from about 2000 onward. That's when I first started writing, and we are in 2021. So in 21 years, I have written 43 books. Right? That's about roughly 2 books a year. Now, how did that happen? Again, the issue of remaining disciplined. As I told you in the first program, first slide you would have seen, everyone must, we must face, we must feel two kinds of pain, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I chose discipline, and that's how you do it. So what is the roadmap? What are the milestones? Milestone was at least one book a year. In my case, I managed to do 2 books a year, but my goal was 1 book a year at least. And then the second goal was in terms of training, which is to take training for myself. Now you might say, well, I want to become a consultant, why must I take training for myself? Because this is one of the biggest convincing factors. First and foremost, everybody needs to learn. No matter how learned you think you are, you still need to learn. And almost always there will be somebody who knows more than you, and that person can teach you. And you never lose by spending time in learning. So I did that. And second big benefit that I found from this was that on the and of course for now a couple of decades, nobody has ever questioned me on my fees. But if somebody expresses any sort of anxiety, for example, somebody once told me, oh, but so and so charges less. So I said to him, here is my CV, and you will notice here, these are my milestones, 1 book a year, these training programs, and so on and so on. I said, why don't you ask him to send his CV and compare the two? Do you want to work with somebody who is focused on his own development, who's spending his own time, money, and energy in developing himself? Or you want to focus on somebody because you want to treat learning like you, in the same way like you treat buying potatoes or tomatoes, which is cheaper, up to you. I never had that argument for a second, or that discussion with anybody for a second time, because this is the biggest seller. The biggest seller is the investment you make in yourself, because that's the biggest convincer to people that this is somebody who can add value. because the person adds value to themselves. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that people do. That is, they do not add value to themselves. They only think about, how to make money and how to project yourself and present yourself and so on. And if you ask them this question, and you should ask this question, and say, show me what value have you added to yourself in the last 12 months? And let them tell you that. And let them give you evidence of that, not just talk. Evidence of that. So this is the thing you should do. After the strategy, you make a roadmap, and in the roadmap you have milestones, because metrics, measurement, is the test of reality. If you want to see what people value, see what they measure. This is the statement of and quote of Michael Harry, the guy who invented Six Sigma quality standard. If you want to see what people value, see what they measure. So this is what I'm saying to you. Create a measurement standard which demonstrates what you value, which is quality. Right? And then finally and most importantly, never, ever compromise quality. There are two things that you must never compromise, no matter what. No matter what. One is your ethics. Your ethics, your values, your morals. Never ever compromise those, because there's no monetary value on that. If you compromise your ethics, your life is over. And second one is quality. Never ever settle for poor quality. And remember, quality means consistency. Quality is not a one-time good thing. Quality is a every single time good thing. Because consistency is the root of reliability. And reliability is your bread and butter. You will be valued, you will be respected, you will be influential only and only if you are reliable. And you will be reliable if you are consistent in delivering quality. So this is how the three things are related. Quality, consistency leads to reliability. Quality delivered consistently leads to or creates reliability. And reliability is your brand, it's your legacy, it's your signature, it's your face. Right? Finally, to close, think about all of this and all the exercises that you have done, and say, therefore, going forward, what will you do more of, or rather, what will you start doing, what will you stop doing, and what will you continue to do? What is it that you are not doing till now, but you realize that it's important, so you will start doing that? What is it that you were doing now, which you realize is a waste of time, so you will stop that? And what is it that you were doing and now you will do that consciously and thoughtfully because you realize it was a good thing? Start, stop, continue. Make this into a standard practice for everything. Anything you start, anything you do, think about this. Say start, stop, continue. Right? Alhamdulillah, so I want to close with that. We began with saying what? We began with saying what is the meaning of tawakkul. And the meaning of tawakkul is to take risk. Risk on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To trust only Allah. To ask help only from Allah. And then we said, make a goal statement. What is your life goal going to be? Make a write a statement. Come to that whichever way you like, but write a statement. And then take this statement and map it onto the SMART goals model. Is it SMART as a goal? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. SMART goal model. Having done that, now you do a gap analysis. This is my goal. Here is where I am. I am here. The goal is here. How do I get there? A gap analysis. In that gap analysis, you consider then the people you need, the funding you need, and the factors that are likely to influence you. Say, who are the people? Where are they? How do I get them? What do I have? Who do I have? Who do I need? Funding. What do I have? How much do I need? And factors, how will they influence me? How can I influence them? How can I leverage them? How can I make use of them? Based on that, you create a strategic plan which takes into account people, how can I attract and retain them, takes into account funds, how can I get funds in a way which is permissible before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and factors, again same thing, which is how can I make the best of the factors that are facing me and which are likely to face me going forward. That would be a strategy. Based on the strategy, you create a roadmap. The roadmap must have milestones because that is metrics, so that you can measure yourself to see if you are delivering what you claim to and what you set out to deliver. Right? And finally, the focus on your quality to be delivered consistently to make you reliable. I wish you all the very best, and I will see you in the next course, which is key number 3. Jazakallahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.